Welcome to Roll, Ponder, and Play, a podcast dedicated to crafting stories through the application of role-playing game engines, combined with creative thinking and propelled into the ether by the barest of prompts. I'm Jared Hess, taking on all the roles of Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. Come with me on a journey, and together let us explore realms of shadow, danger, and wonder. One roll can decide the fate of many things. Welcome to episode 31 of the Queen of Shadows podcast on Roll, Ponder, and Play. I'm Jared Hess, Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. In our previous episode, the companions awaken and continue their travels from the Iron Pillar, following the river south through the Tempest Hills. About midday, the road takes them to a rotten wooden bridge that spans a large and deep ravine, through which the heedless river courses with rapidity. A covered wagon perches precariously near a ragged hole where a tangle of horses and reins and tackle have fallen through the bridge, and, spiraling in midair above the ravine, threaten to drag the wagon and its occupants down to certain destruction. A young boy named Fen leans forward and tries to reach the saddlebags at his mother's urging. Before Eilwen can do anything, the lad slips and falls and plunges into the depths. Eilwen leaps into action and saves the rest of the family, 3 girls from the back of the wagon, Valeri, their mother, and she also rescues the saddlebags, cutting them free just as the entire wagon collapses through the rotting bridge and smashes onto the rocks near Fen's body, far below. Eilwen confronts Valeri over sending Fen to recover the contents of the saddlebags and wonders what could be of such great value to risk the cost of a beloved child's life. Valeri remains tight-lipped when Eilwen opens the saddlebags and holds a small tube made of hardened leather. But Eilwen doesn't open the leather tube, and sensing the mother's trauma and heartache and the need for allies of her own, she returns the mysterious item with no strings attached. Eilwen and Aron, with Seith's help, then descend into the ravine to recover Fen's ruined body. They return the body to Valeri, who, upon recovering her young boy's frail corpse, falls to her knees and weeps into Eilwen's arms. As we begin this episode, Eilwen's stats are Edge 2, Heart 1, Iron 1, Shadow 3, Wits 2. Current assets: Archer, initial box; Cutthroat, initial box; Shadow Walk, initial box. Current statuses: Supply 4 out of 5, Spirit 2 out of 5, Health 5 out of 5, Momentum 1 out of 10. Current debilities: None. Failure track 7 out of 24. Current unspent XP 3. And now, on to episode 31 of Queen of Shadows. The dying light of coals, veined in dusky reds, dimly lit their faces. Valeri had cried herself out and now sat dully staring into the light of the dying embers. Having neither shovel nor mattock, they had nonetheless all worked together to bury Fen's small body under a small mound of hard rocks, jagged and cold, many of which had been half buried in the rich, moist soil. Now they lay upturned, and their rich soil was made richer still with the life of the fallen. Valeri's daughters, Teleri, and Lyri, their hands dirty and ragged from helping in the toil of burial, now slept, as did Aron and Seith. Eilwen had shared some of the bread she had found with the others. Scratch sat near her and also stared into the dying fire. When he exhaled, his breath stirred the coals of the fire, sending vermilion sparks spiraling into the night. Eilwen watched them, and she thought they must be like the prayers to the dead gods, flaming briefly with hot and passionate faith, but then cooling when no answer was forthcoming from the ever-silent heavens. Eilwen sighed and reached over and rubbed the bony ridges on the young wyvern's head, and eventually the lids of his eyes closed. Eilwen had taken first watch and heard the wild forest come alive, the chitters and growls and low grunts of distant forest animals providing a backdrop to her thoughts. She stirred the fire and added another log, and the dull red glow turned to a more cheery amber flickering of light and warmth mingled with a coiling of smoke. Scratch shifted but didn't wake. When Eilwen returned to her seat, she caught Valeri watching her. "You have a strange pet," Valeri said, watching the young wyvern. "His name is Scratch." Eilwen smiled down at the unusual creature. "He's a small winged beast. I found his egg in a cave far to the mountains in the north." Okay, this next part is from the positive match from the prior episode. "Who are you?" Valeri asked abruptly. "Seith told you my name," Eilwen said. Does Valeri recognize Eilwen? I think there's a 50-50 chance. On a 5, I get a no, but... "That's not what I mean. There's something different about you. Who are you?" "Just a traveler seeking some answers," Eilwen said. "Answers? About what?" Eilwen just shook her head and gave a tired smile as she leaned back against a log. "I have my secrets too." "I'm sorry," Valeri mumbled, and she snapped a twig and tossed it into the fire, where it flamed briefly before crumbling into dusty ruin. "Much like life," Eilwen mused to herself with a somber look over to the small pile of stones. "A moment of light and heat, and then all is cold darkness." She stared into the flames and wished their light could burn the darkness from her heart. "You showed me a great kindness today," Valeri said, and it is rude for me to pry." Silence descended between them, revealing the popping of the fire, the water rushing in the ravine far below, the ever-growing chill that crept upon their backs from the silence of the forested air. Eilwen pulled over her leather quiver and began repairing some arrows where the fletching had come loose. As she worked, squinting in the dim light of the flames, she noticed Valeri looking at her. The other woman's face bore a furrowed and studied brow. "What?" Eilwen asked, looking up. "It's well, I feel like I've seen you somewhere before, but I can't place it." Eilwen smiled and looked at her, their eyes meeting briefly before she returned back to her work. "That's not likely unless you've traveled far to the north where the peaks are veiled with snow and cloud and the ice falls from your exhaled breath. I think not, though. You have the look of a lowlander." Has Valeri traveled north to the Veiled Mountains? I think that is unlikely, and on a 4, the Oracle confirms my suspicion with a no. So is Valeri from a nearby settlement? I think that is likely. On a 4, I get a no, but... Valeri shook her head. "I've not been that far north. I come from a village in the hinterlands, the land south of these mountains here, a circle called Redhall." "A circle?" Eilwen asked. "A collection of settlements." Eilwen pondered that for a moment. Surely that would be a sight to see. Many people gathered together like so many bees in a hive. "I've never heard of this Redhall," Eilwen said. "Count yourself lucky then," Valeri grimaced, as if the name were distasteful. "Anyway, I'm no soft lowlander." Eilwen kept her own counsel on that score. Anyone who hadn't experienced the harsh winters in the Veiled Mountains had to be soft. Or at least softer.
And you be from these northern mountains, then?
Yes, Eilwen confirmed. Aron and I came from a settlement past the northern peaks. A place of ice and snow. It's called Frostbridge. She returned to her work. Let's ask a few more questions of the Oracle. Did Valeri ever meet Eilwen's mother? I think that might be somewhat likely. On a roll of a 6, I get a yes. That must be what she sees in Eilwen's face, then. Does she know of Eilwen's mother heading north? I think there's a 50-50 chance, but on a 3, I get a no. Valeri gave a soft gasp.
I remember now. When you turned your head just now, your profile. It reminded me of her. The witch.
What? Eilwen asked, her eyes darting back to Valeri's face.
What witch?
Valeri frowned and leaned back, her eyes studying Eilwen's face intently.
This was many years ago, when I was a girl. A few years younger than you are now. I met a woman, a beautiful woman like you, but a bit older. She had piercing blue eyes, the color of ice, the hair the color of the sun at midday. You look very much like her. How very strange.
Her voice trailed off.
What was she like?
Eilwen asked quietly. Valeri twisted a strand of hair around her finger and stared into the flames. Let us ask the Oracle and find out. Had Eilwen's mother been kind to Valeri? I think there's a 50-50 chance. And on a 3, I get a no. Was she cruel? And on a 50-50 chance, I get a 10, yes and. Oh my, okay. And what were the events of her encounter with Arwid, Eilwen's mother? Asking the Oracle, I get judgmentally feeble. As the silence stretched, Eilwen thought that perhaps Valeri hadn't heard her question. Then Valeri muttered a curse.
Unkind, she said finally. Cruel even. My mother was in poor health at the time, and it was rumored this woman was skilled with herbs and such. She had the gift, you see.
The gift? Eilwen breathed.
Magic,
Valeri said, her eyes glittering in the firelight. Then she shrugged.
I couldn't pay, of course. Father drank too much, and Mother did what she could to put food on the table. We all did, my siblings and me. I pleaded for her aid, but the witch mocked me, called me a beggar child, and worse, even threatened to beat me if I didn't leave her in peace. She was a harsh woman, that one. Proud and harsh, but beautiful.
She stabbed a stick at the coals and stirred up more angry sparks that scurried about like an overturned hill of red ants, milling and spilling into the night sky.
My mother died 2 days later. I'm sorry,
Eilwen whispered and gave a frown, and thought of Arwood again.
Maybe it wasn't her mother. Maybe it was someone else. But the description Valeri gave, and Eilwen's recent vision at the pillar, and her mother would have been about that age. This was at Red Hall?
Eilwen asked. I think that is likely, and on a roll of a 9, I get a yes. Was Arwood staying with the leadership in the circle at Red Hall? On a 50-50 chance, I get a 4. A no.
Aye, that's right, Valeri said, the dark scowl coming again across her face. Red Hall, she nearly spat. I've lived there my whole life, except for now. This woman, this witch, did she give her name?
Did Valeri know Arwid's name? I think that is somewhat unlikely, and on the roll of a 4, I get a no.
Nay, we just called her the witch, or the healer. I could never call her that latter title, though. To me, she'll always be the witch.
What was she doing in Redhall? Eilwen asked, leaning forward. Did Valeri know what Arwood was doing there? I think there's a 50-50 chance, and on a 9, I get a yes. Okay, let me roll on the mag. Mark's Adventure Glyphs. Pictograph Oracles available on RPGsolo.com. What do I get? Some strange device with flames on it, a shield, 3 leaves, angry flames, conversation bubble, arrows pointing to a pouch, a drop of water in a puddle, a bird, documents, or maybe a map. I'll also roll on the character goal oracle. 42. Create an item. Did Valeri see Arwood use the device she created? 50-50 chance. On a 10, I get a yes and. Were people helping Arwood with her goal? 50-50 chance. On a 6, I get a yes, but not willingly.
After my mother died, I was angry and wanted revenge, Valeri continued her tale. I sneaked to the witch's home and peeked through her window, intent on stealing some item from her or causing some other harm. It was foolish of me, yes, but such were the emotions of a young, angry, grieving girl. The witch was making some kind of device.
What was it? Eilwen asked.
Some say that magic isn't real,
Valeri whispered, and then swallowed as if her mouth had gone dry.
They're wrong, you know. For weeks, the witch had been scouring the hills for black iron. I don't know how she did it, but I think she threatened them or their families to help her.
Eilwen said nothing, but gripped the arrow tighter, feeling the smooth wood, and her frown deepened.
Anyway, that night I saw her melt down the black iron and pour it into a mold made of wood. When she finished, and the iron had cooled, she removed the mold. I saw a small iron figurine, barely larger than a babe's small fist. It was of a raven.
Valeri shook her head and stared into Eilwen's eyes.
An iron raven. Then the witch muttered words over it, chanting in strange tongue, and I saw darkness pour into it.
Valeri gave a small shudder. She hunched her shoulders and leaned towards the fire.
Darkness?
Eilwen felt cold and goose pimples rose on her flesh.
I'm not sure what they were exactly. They seemed like shadows from the grave.
The woman licked her lips.
I think they were the ghosts and shades of the dead.
Valeri made what looked like a circular warding gesture that Eilwen didn't recognize, and Eilwen saw real fear in the other woman's eyes.
I wanted to leave, but I was too terrified to move. I watched as she chanted some more, and a blue light, strange blue flames maybe, surrounded the bird figurine for an instant. Then it was gone. It glowed with a soft blue light, and I heard the rushing and flapping of wings, many, many wings.
Were the ravens that she saw and heard made of shadow? I think there's a 50-50 chance. But on a 5, I get a no, but...
It was near dusk, and a cloud of ravens poured out of the surrounding trees, circling her home. They streamed in through the open windows and the door, flapping about the witch and the figurine in her hand. Eilwen didn't move, caught up in the story. What then? She whispered.
Did Valeri see what Arwood used the birds for? 50-50 chance. On a 9, I get a yes. Was it to kill someone? I think that is actually somewhat likely, but on a 1, I get a no and. Okay, was it to become a raven? Somewhat likely. On a 10, I get a yes and...
And then she was gone. Gone? Eventually the ravens flew away and the witch and the figurine were gone. I think she must have joined them, Valeri whispered. A strange tale, Eilwen said, feeling discomfited.
Did Valeri notice Eilwen's interest? I think that is somewhat likely. On a 10, I get a yes and...
Aye, and I can see it's one that you're very interested in, Valeri said, and locked eyes with Eilwen, as if probing her.
The older woman leaned back and crossed her arms.
Don't think I didn't see the look in your eye. It's why I kept talking, to see what you would do. You know something of the witch that I speak of, don't you?
Eilwen fidgeted and looked at her fletching. The sticky pitch she had used from the pine trees to set the feathers into the shafts reminded her of home, of fletching arrows at the kitchen table while her mother talked or baked bread or sung quietly in the firelight.
Maybe,
Eilwen said softly.
Maybe?
Eilwen muttered something and looked at Valeri.
Heralds, but she needed this woman to trust her. She was a link to her mother's past. I think this woman you spoke of might have been my mother,
Eilwen finally said. For a long time, Valeri didn't say anything, and the night's chill deepened, a cold silence that crept between them. Eventually, however, when the silence stretched taut and uncomfortable, like skin over a drum, the woman gave a slow nod, her eyes still on Eilwen.
I see. But I didn't know her as a cruel woman, Eilwen said, and a pleading note crept into her voice. Perhaps she was long ago. I don't know hardly anything about her younger life. But people can change, right? And I never saw magic from her, not really. Well, yes, I saw the strange shadows coming out of the ceiling when she taught me the words, but that's not important.
Eilwen winced.
Had she really just said that? Yes, Arwood, my mother, she was a hard woman, unyielding as rimed iron when she decided something. But I remembered a kind side to her, too. A woman laughing and smiling, dancing with father, baking bread, singing gently. Simple memories, Valeri.
The memories of home made the revelation of her mother's previous cruelty smart all the more for being thrown in such stark relief. Valeri watched her for a while, then shook her head and gave a small sigh.
I didn't know her well, Eilwen. She was in Red Hall for only a few months at most. Perhaps she did change, who can say? But I tell you honestly that I counted it a good day when she left with that cloud of ravens. My mother had too many secrets,
Eilwen said quietly into the night. The fire had died down to coals again.
And she died before I could find them all out.
Valeri nodded and watched Eilwen as if weighing her. Then, after some time, she slowly pulled out the leather case.
Too many secrets. Well, you've trusted one of yours to me. Now it's time for me to tell you another tale.
Valeri undid the leather ties on the case that held the leather flap down and pulled back the flap, revealing the tube's dark opening. All right, friends and fans and whoever out there is listening, I wanted to leave you with a listener review before we hit the outro. that's kind of what people do in this space, so here we go. I guess I'll jump on the bandwagon and try and do this a little more if I can find said reviews. Anyway, this comes from Techrovert and arrived on Apple Podcasts. Great Iron Sworn actual play. I really enjoy the world built in this TTRPG narrative. Thank you, Techrovert, for that short and sweet comment. I really appreciate user comments, and I am glad that you are enjoying it. I enjoy playing in it and creating it, and, well, I can't take all the credit. I mean, Sean Tompkin did come up with the Ironsworn setting, so I am borrowing much of that. But it's kind of my own take on it, so I'll take credit for part of it. Anyway, thank you all for joining with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day, all of you. And I'll see you next time on Roll, Ponder, and Play. Thank you for joining us, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed what you experienced. If you would like to support Roll, Ponder, and Play, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give the show a positive review on your podcatcher of choice. You can share the show with your friends and family and on your socials. Nothing beats word of mouth as a way to bring in new listeners. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/rollponderandplay. There you can find show notes and transcripts, as well as other projects I'm involved in. And paid subscribers get access to subscriber-only episodes, shows, and other content. Finally, you can simply reach out to me and say hello. Comments from you are what inspire me to keep doing this, and I'd sincerely love to hear what you think of the show. To do so, you can find me on my Patreon, or on Discord at Roll, Ponder, and Play, or by email at rollponderandplay@gmail.com. Until we meet again on Roll, Ponder, and Play, may your own dice rolls ever bring you success.